welcome everyone to the last session of our Early Years Can Create workshops. I hope that this one is just as helpful as all the other ones have been. It's been lovely to see when you shared on Twitter some of the things that you've been applying from the sessions, and to see it actually in action, and then being able to obviously share that and other people learn from you as well. So really well done, and thank you for tagging me in those so that I get to see them as well. So this is all about my favorite topic, augmented reality. So if you haven't joined us before, welcome. My name is Lindsay Stuttard. I'm a digital teaching and learning specialist for ACS International Schools. I'm also an Apple Distinguished Educator. You can follow me on Twitter at my handle there, or connect with me in the Apple Education community. Our Early Years Can Create workshops, we have had 5 of them in total. If you've missed any of them, they are posted to our YouTube channel from the ACS Regional Training Center. I will share the link to that at the end of the session. And then you can catch up with any of the sessions that you might have missed. So we started this journey looking at the role the camera plays and photography in the classroom, then moving on to videography, then looking at music and audio and sound. And then we last week dove into looking at drawing. This week we are talking about augmented reality. So what we will cover today, there is no official book from Apple. So we are going to be using my book to sort of guide the way that we could look at bringing augmented reality into early learners or early years classrooms. So we're going to look at the role that AR can play in early years with creativity. I'll talk to you about some of the AR apps that we've used, and then we'll dive into the different sections of my book, which is free to download, and showing how there's that nice progression of digital skills and competencies for young learners, building up to students using AR creatively. And then I will leave you with a few additional resources at the end. But this is the book. Everyone can get Augmented Early Learners Teacher Guide, free to download on iBooks. If you, for some reason, don't have iBooks in your country, just let me know and I'll be able to get the e-publications over to you so that you can still have access to this. So in the chat, just we've started every other session, what role do you see augmented reality playing in an early years environment? Because this is such a new topic for a lot of people, you might not know. So you could just put down that you're here just to learn and get some new ideas because you haven't had the opportunity yet to really explore and play around. But if you have been actively using AR or you've started to experiment with it, please do let us know what role that you see AR playing in your early years classroom. I'll just give you about 10 to 20 seconds to go ahead and pop some things in the chat, because it's always beneficial to share and to learn from each other. Lovely. So we've got imagination, absolutely, a big one there. Being creative and interacting with their environment, creating stories and presenting ideas, and bringing experiences to the children that can't be replicated in the classroom, absolutely. Get some things from outside that are not from your area. Yeah, bringing something in that's not normally attainable. Wonderful, Lauren, you're new to AR, you're here to learn, so fantastic. Thank you for sharing those. As I've said in all of our workshops, I think no matter where we are in the world, what program that we are specifically teaching, we will be tapping into these different areas in our classrooms. And the purpose of these workshops has been to look at the way creativity can play a role in supporting all of those different areas for our students. So communication and language, PSHE, physical development, literacy, maths, understanding the world, and expressive art and design. So let's start with communication and language as it relates to AR. It's definitely, we see children who engage with augmented reality, it's encouraging them to share what they are seeing and what they are experiencing with their peers. It's a great way for them to just start to have something as a common thread to build on with a peer. And the level of excitement because of what they're seeing and they're experiencing, they can't keep it bottled inside. They want to go and tell one of their friends or one of their classmates what it is that they're seeing. And it really engages them to share and to talk with their peers. PSHE, so depending on your situation, you might have the ability for students to work in pairs or in teams as they're navigating an AR experience. Some of the ones that we've done with early years, we might have one child that's holding the iPad, the other is maybe doing a checklist, or the other might be tapping on the screen to take a screenshot for their team. So that's a really great way of some team building, but being able to work together and navigate that AR experience. So physical development, I love the fact that the use of AR requires you to be up and to be moving around. Not only that, but it allows you to take learning beyond just the confines of the classroom. You can absolutely do AR in your classroom, depending on your physical space, but it's even better to take it outdoors if it's possible, weather permitting and obviously space permitting. So you've got children up and they are moving physically in the real world while they are exploring in that digital space. Literacy, I'm glad that that was mentioned in the chat. Yes, students can create engaging scenes or stories that can be told through immersive AR. And they love seeing when a story character or a setting that they've created that they can pop into the classroom, maybe invite their friends into, or take pictures of their friends standing with a character from a story that they've drawn, is always a great way to encourage more literacy. Mathematics. AR does offer the potential for you to have more conceptual understanding be demonstrated because it can be displayed through AR. So if you have the opportunity to create with AR, especially as a teacher, you can bring an experience into the classroom that solidifies the understanding of different math concepts that you're trying to cover because you can physically put it in the room. So as was mentioned in the chat, yes, AR is providing access to parts of the world that are not normally attainable and might be far-fetched. So we've had students walk on the surface of Mars. We've had students explore rainforests. We've had students go into the depths of a coral reef, all being done through AR. Not normally accessible on a daily outing on a field trip, but is allowing us to bring these worlds to the children and make it seem that we're more connected than we would be just talking about it. It's a whole other thing for children to be physically in the ocean and walking around a coral reef and seeing what's there than just watching it through a video or reading about it in the book. It really does help bring it to life. So for the expressive arts and design, this is a great opportunity as well to explore and work in a 3D environment. So students are going to be moving around a physical space. They're looking up, they're looking down, they're walking towards things, they're walking away from things. So they are moving in the physical world while exploring in a 3D world. And it's also an opportunity to put the creativity in their hands to design something that they can bring into their physical space and explore it with the iPad. So why AR? I can see I've had a little error there with my animation, so forgive me. We can access more of our world, as I mentioned before. We are preparing them for the future. So in 2022, there were 2.1 billion mobile AR users around the world. And that is a statistic from Statistica.com, I believe it is. Which means much like we had a coding boom about 5 or 6 years ago, where all schools were jumping on the coding bandwagon and doing robotics and making websites. This is now also going to be sort of a boom in the industry where lots of companies are going to be wanting to have students coming out of universities that know how to work with AR, that know how to bring different consumer experiences to life. So even if you can start introducing it now, we're setting them up on that pathway of knowing that this technology exists, understanding that they can be creative with it, and maybe it's an industry that they want to go into as they get older. We're offering different opportunities to see things in a different way. So clearly bringing a dinosaur into the classroom, or in the past, we've done a big Polar Express train into the classroom. It's seeing things differently than you normally would. And it's allowing you to set something up in the classroom that doesn't require a lot of prep, but has an amazing benefit. So encouraging a culmination of all creativity into one medium. We've talked about photography, we've talked about video, we've talked about music and audio and sound, we've talked about drawing. AR is a creative tool that allows you to bring all those different aspects together into one medium. And I think that that is a really powerful thing for students to learn how to do. If they're confident taking pictures and doing a video through screen recording, they can make an amazing AR experience that they can then share with others. Additional things to add in would be some background music or sound effects. And as students progress through school, they get those opportunities to be creative in that way and build these immersive scenes. So while we can visit places and see our animals or different things from around the world, we could look at them through books, we could see them in pictures, we could watch videos. It really isn't the same as experiencing those things through AR. Now, I want to be very clear on this. I don't endorse VR for students that are under 10 years old. The reason is we don't have enough research to show that the benefits outweigh any negatives. There might be situations where VR could seem too realistic and scare children. We don't want VR to trigger any underlying health conditions that are not yet diagnosed, such as epilepsy or maybe heart conditions. But also because young children are still forming their understanding of the world, they might be convinced that what they saw through VR, such as walking on the moon or exploring in the ocean, they might be convinced that that really happened because their frame of reference is so narrow. That might be what it's like to go and experience being in the ocean or walking on the moon. How else would they know? But with AI, it's very apparent that what they are seeing is not really there. And when I do this in the classrooms with young children, we talk about it initially. We say, look around you. Do you see those things really in the classroom? No, it's because they're not there. How is that happening? The iPad is bringing it to life. So I like that distinction between AR and VR. I think it's a really critical one, especially for schools that try and push VR too early for young children. So just as a little aside there. So allowing our students to explore through AR is showing another way of accessing their world. We can bring things to them and they can bring things to life. If it's used purposefully, students can become engaged consumers of AR and work towards being active creators. So there's two main distinctions between the way I've always taught using AR in a classroom. We have to move just beyond that wow moment, because that moment exists and then it's gone. The purposeful use is either having a consumption app that has some things built into it that you can use to link to your curriculum or topics that you're studying, or working towards being creators where the AR app is providing access to bring your own design elements into it. So content consumption and content creation are going to be the two main areas when working with AR, and really helps when you're analyzing different AR apps, which are the best ones to use. Excuse me. So what is on offer? I'm going to take you through some of the ones that we've used and have found to be really beneficial. The first being the WWF Forest app. That's the icon for it there in the corner. A wonderful app that's free. It places students in the heart of a rainforest through a series of chapters, and each chapter can be done as a different lesson. The students will launch the forest, which can be an immersive size that they can walk around and look up and down and so on, or it could be a tabletop one if you're limited to size. The students, as they explore, they're finding different bits of content that we as a teacher can then talk about and reflect on at the end of the lesson. They're getting to connect with different species that live in the rainforest, whether it's plants, animals, insects, or even learning about human impact, which it can be quite upsetting to see some of the things that humans do in the rainforest, but it's important for them to know that we do play this role in the way this ecosystem is being treated. And so the children really enjoy it. There's opportunities to take screenshots. They can do screen recordings. And at the end of these 5 lessons that are in there, in the 5th lesson, the children take their knowledge of what they've seen and experienced, and they become the designers. They then get the opportunity to design their own rainforest, because as they complete each lesson, they are earning more rewards. Those rewards are pieces of, they are plants and animal species that they can then bring into making their own rainforest. And we do screen recordings with the children taking you on a tour, explaining about what they've put into their forest, and those then get shared with parents. So it's a really wonderful app. I do recommend it. We start this with probably about our 4 to 5-year-olds. The next one is Rakugaki. It's a simple app that allows for objects to just pop off the paper and come to life to interact with. So I've got this little drawing of a whale here, and when I get to the demo part, I'll show you how that can work. It can be done with photographs that you print out. It can be done with children's drawings, as long as it has a nice defined edge, which helps teaching outlining skills. Then you can have it pop up off the page. There is a cost to this one, but if you purchase several apps through your VPP or through your school's IT program, the cost is actually a lot cheaper if you get 20 or more. I think it ends up being about 45 pence per license. So it's a good investment, and you can get quite a bit of use out of it. The children really love seeing the characters just pop up off the page and start moving around, and then being able to interact with them as well. So here is a little sample. And so you can see it becomes 3-dimensional, has a bit of a cardboard effect to it, almost as if it's been carved out of the paper. And then you can tap on it, you can give food or different games and so on inside. But one of our amazing kindergarten teachers last year decided to make a replica of the sea turtles that are hatching out of their eggs and going into the ocean. So she filled our interactive sandbox with these ping pong balls. They made a beach where the turtles would lay their eggs, and then scanned the turtle several different times to make it seem like the turtles were coming out of their eggs and going off into the water there. So that was a wonderful way of seeing the teacher extend the use beyond what she had initially seen. So really fantastic example there. Probably one you have heard about, maybe you've had a chance to explore it or not, is AR Maker. So AR Maker is a fantastic one for young kids because the interface is really very simple and straightforward, but it does allow children to start bringing their own designs into the platform. So you can make interactive and creative scenes. In this one, we had making use of AR Maker's own 3D shapes and wrapping them with different images to try and create almost like a little Minecraft world. So we have the land, we have the grass, and we have the water. Now, an extension of that, just to show, is maybe as you get older children, you could start to think about, well, how many blocks did I use? And out of all the blocks, what fraction of them were water blocks? What fraction were grass blocks? What fraction were the land blocks? And then working in, percentages and decimals. Probably too much for early childhood, but you can understand that you can use AR Maker all the way through. So if you've got colleagues that are working further up the school and are thinking about AR, you could introduce it in early childhood, and then they can build upon the use of it for making more math connections. As we said, building stories, having different scenes created, demonstrating some different concepts, or even having students literally walk through a math problem. So they follow the path, they meet the girl, and they see the different questions she's posing. They follow along until they get to the end. So there's a variety of different ways you can do it. Really, the only limit is your imagination. AR Maker does have some animation options where you can make things move and react in a certain way. So this was just an experiment to see how we could wrap a textured picture around a cylinder 3D shape, or even to have a fish wrapped around it. And then what sort of behaviors could we do to start to bring another level to the scene? So here we have fish going around in a cyclone. We celebrated International Dot Day earlier in this academic year. Every single student got to design a dot, and we brought them into AR Maker and made this beautiful array of all the different dots just spinning around in the classroom, but they were the children's own designs. And it's a popular one. I think we'll be doing it every year because the children really loved seeing their dot in the real world spinning around and then accompanied by their peers' dots. So another great option there. The Very Hungry Caterpillar. So this is more of a content consumption app where the children can start to learn how to work in a digital layer in the real world and interact with the content that's there. So it's a great introductory one to working with AR, which features obviously a very popular children's character. There's different things that you can do with the caterpillar. He can play with the toys, you can blow bubbles, you can paint, you can also feed him food. And every time he eats the different type of food, he'll eventually go to sleep, wake up the next day, eat more, and then finally will transform and turn into a butterfly and just fly around the room so children can navigate their iPad and watch him fly. So that's another really good one. Freeform. I think most people have had some attempts at using Freeform for whatever their purposes are. But what we've done is look at Freeform as a space to collate multiple AR file types. And these are open source AR file types that you can just get from different places online. But we've decided to make them into like a board where students can tap and be the one in control of what they're seeing and experiencing. So I think this was with our 3- and 4-year-olds that we used this board. We made sure that they could collaborate on the file with us using their managed Apple IDs. It's now on their iPads and they can tap and they can listen to sound. They can look at a picture of an animal, or they can tap on the AR file and bring that animal right into the classroom. And what's nice there is the experience doesn't have to end when the lesson time does. That is there for them on their iPads that they can go back to whenever they want in their classrooms or be followed up with by their classroom teacher. One nice thing as well, we're not putting them online to do this, which I'm sure many of you have seen or experimented with Google Animals. You can end up going lots of different ways with children, just getting impatient and tapping on links. This keeps children in free form, whether they're listening to the sound, whether they're looking at the picture, or whether they are working with the file type, the AR. They don't leave free form, they stay in there, and there's no going online that happens, which I think is a big win. Additionally, if the physical environment becomes too much, they can just look at the animal as an object rather than bringing it physically into the world. And as you can see, you can take some screenshots as well. So here is a student making use of this.
Right, go and show me. What are you going to look at now?
You're stepping on the rubber. Yeah.
Oh. Should we make it a bit smaller?
So those are some of the apps that we've made use of and have had some really good successes with. I'm just going to pause for a minute and check if anyone has any questions that I can answer. So these, for the AR files, just to be clear, when you're bringing AR files into an app like Freeform, you want it as a USDZ file, which is a universal scene descriptor file. That's what makes it possible for the iPad to view it and to open it up. So you can do any kind of search online for open source USDZ files. My particular favorite is, I think it's Sketchfab, but I have another one as well. And so I just look for the ones that I think are going to be appropriate, but also you want to be considerate of the file size, because really massive and intense files will just crash. So you want to try and keep the megabytes down roughly to about 10 megabytes or smaller. And there's quite a lot to choose from. So I hope that helps. I don't see any other questions at the moment, so I'm just going to move on to our Explore section. Excuse me. So in my book, I have written up a progression of augmented reality based on what I see happening with children naturally. So in here, we have 4 sections. Each section has 3 different lessons for the children to navigate through. So there's change my world, explore my world, create my world, and design my world. So we are working at the very basics and moving on. Each unit is building upon the skills that were covered in the previous one. So change my world, this is how it will look. You'll have 3 lessons that break it down into explore, discover, and play. There's some objectives, what early learners will be able to do, and then some vocabulary terms that you can build into conversation with the children. The purpose of Change My World is they are lessons that focus on building student understanding of the camera, the role that it plays, and what we can do as users of our camera to make changes to our world. So you might recognize some of the things in here, such as the kaleidoscope effect, such as Keynote Live Video. Those were things that we've talked about in other early years sessions that you can definitely use in bringing AR to life in the classroom. But it's all focusing on getting children to feel comfortable with making changes to their world and being able to then navigate those different tools. So in here, we've got Photo Booth and we've got Keynote Live Video, and those are the apps that you would use in the Change My World section. The next unit is Explore My World, and this is where we start to introduce some of those AR apps that we've just had a look at. And it's really the opportunity for students to use sort of pre-made content or built-in content in order to start exploring in an AR environment. So students are going to learn about different aspects of their world. It's at their level and it's with their interests. So we've got the Hungry Caterpillar, we've got going in and helping out in the forest and doing a deep dive. So those are the apps that we will use in this section. We've got the Forest app, the Hungry Caterpillar, one that I didn't demo, which is Jigspace, and that we go in and we specifically look for the coral reef example to allow students to walk around a coral reef. Create My World. So we're now jumping over from the consumption piece to now learning how we can start to do some basic creating, making use of augmented reality. So those lessons will focus on making minor edits and changes to our world. And we're now thinking about actively creating within AR. Might be designing an animal habitat, building a nature space, or learning how to set the scene using some basic content from AR Maker. And so those are the apps that we would use as part of Create My World. AR Maker, the middle app there is called 3D Bear. And then the last one is I think it's Discovery Education Sandbox, where that is perfect if you're building an ecosystem or starting to introduce different ecosystems to children. And then lastly, Design My World for the last unit. We're really encouraging our children now to maximize everything that they've been through, all the skills that we've worked up, and allowing them now to be in charge of creating. So in Design My World, they are the creators with AR. They are bringing their own designs to life. And that could be through, now we're starting to introduce some basic 3D modeling and design. It might be we're going to be working with AR Maker and making something move and change and have a behavior. And then an all about me scene. So if I was working with AR Maker and I wanted to make a scene about myself, what would I put into it? There's a little planning book and they can download that in Keynote, build up what they want as their resources that show all about me, and then import it to AR Maker. So for this one, we're looking at AR Maker and the app Tinkercad, which yes, we do start introducing Tinkercad with our pre-K children who are sort of 4 turning 5. And that carries on all the way through the school, that 3D design element, because there is the ability for children to just draw an image and see it come to life in a 3-dimensional way. So I'm going to do a quick demo now of some of the apps I've chosen, AR Maker, Rakugaki, and Freeform. So I'm just going to pause sharing my screen here and jump over to my iPad. Okay, here we go. So with Rakugaki, apologize, it's come through a bit blurry, not sure why, but hopefully it will clear itself up. So with Rakugaki, we've got, when we're in, we have to give permissions to the camera and say that it's okay to be using it. But you've got some different options. You've got a video, you've got a photo to take screenshots, and you've got the scan option in the middle. So when we've got a piece of content such as this whale, the only thing that I have done is make a black outline all the way around. And so now I'm going to stand up. Hope I've got the right light in here to do this. I was able to do it earlier today. And you see that sort of grid area around. We're just trying to get that to pop up over it. I may have to go to the light. Apologies. should be like a pink outline popping up around it. Not selling it well at the moment. There we go. Okay, that's doing something better now. It's doing something. It's just not scanning my item. That's a bit frustrating. I apologize for that. Doesn't seem to be working. It was working just before I started the session. But yes, you put your doodle in the frame and you tap the scan button when it turns red. That's really frustrating that it doesn't seem to want to do it right now. Thankfully, we had that sample in there to have a look at. So it will work. Just for some reason today, it doesn't seem to want to be working to me, probably because it knows I'm talking right now. The other one I was going to show is in Freeform. So a couple examples. I'm going to open up our rainforest animals. And when you look at Freeform, if you've not used it before, it really does allow you to have this open-ended space and that you can throw all different types of files into. What I really like about it is you can design a scene for children to experience and layer in AR animals directly for them. So if we take our capybara, for example, when I tap on it, you see the little eye that's popped up. The eye is what allows the children to be able to view it. I'm going to see, hopefully it will allow me to bring the capybara into the classroom I'm in. Hopefully. This is the issue with AR while you're doing a Zoom. There's so much that the iPad is trying to do right now. Let's see if we can do it as an object instead. So you see at the top there, you've got AR, which is bringing it into your environment. And then objects. Object is allowing you to just view it almost in a blank space. Because sometimes seeing it in your classroom might be too much for some children. And so being able to have that option of doing just the object on its own can be really quite good. Oh, there we go. It's come through quite big, but children can then use their pinching skills just to be able to make those quick changes. And so we can rotate the capybara, we can make it teeny tiny, make it bigger, and then we can get up and walk around it as well. And being able to take screenshots using the shutter button. Okay. Then when we click on the X, we end up going right back into Freeform. And the process to do this is really quite straightforward. So once you have a file that you want to use of an animal or a plant, whatever the case may be, you need to make sure that it saves to your files on your device and that you know where it's going to be located. Because up here in our media option, we've got the option to add in photos and videos. We can bring the camera in, we can scan documents, we can bring a web link in, or we can do insert from. And that's really it. You can do insert from, go into your files and find that 3D file type. So it's really very straightforward to make one of these. A little bit of a repetitive process to set it all up, but then it's very straightforward to bring them all in. I've chosen to add obviously little fingers for the children to see where they need to tap. But once they've done it one time and they go, oh, okay, I tap on that and I can see the eye, I know what I need to do now. And so then they can move from animal to animal and they get that same response when they tap on it. We're looking for that eye. And it's great because the children are learning that iconography in a way that the eye is representing previewing something. Okay, so that is looking at Freeform. So our last one is AR Maker. The first time you open AR Maker, you're going to be greeted with a screen like this. So it's a creative toolbox for AR. You can sketch, scan, and snap the world around you. Transform your creations from 2D to 3D if you want. Place your creations anywhere in your environment, record, save, and share with friends. So let's go. Agreements, and we start. Need to give permission for the camera and the microphone if you're going to do any screen recording. Now, once you're into AR Maker, you've got several options. If you look at the bottom, we've got an option that says templates, and these are all the templates of pre-made content that you can have to work in AR Maker. You've also got an option there at the top that says create your own scene, which I'll come back to in just a moment. We've got My Scenes, which is if you're working in AR Maker and you've got students that are building a scene, but time is up, you can save your scene and you'll be able to access it again later on. And then My Library is any content that you have brought into AR Maker, uploaded it, saved it in, will be accessible here. You'll also be able to delete any content that you no longer need for scenes. So if I go back to templates now, I'm going to go into mythical creatures. In mythical creatures, you've got a variety of different simple clip art options to use. Let's go ahead and click start. Now, as you move your iPad, you'll see this grid show up. The more you move your iPad around, the bigger that grid becomes and the more space you have to build with. So once you're happy with the size of your grid, you just tap on it. And now we can see this white frame has appeared. This is the building space. This is as big as our scene is going to get. Additionally, we've got a little target in the middle. The target is where you're going to be placing the different pieces of content in AR. On the left-hand side, if I scroll here, hopefully you're seeing it, this is the library that comes in that starter scene pack. You've also got a new button, which means we can add our own content from our photo library into here. So let's have a go placing a piece of content. I'm going to choose this dragon. There it is. It's quite small. I'm going to increase the size. And you might notice as I'm increasing the size, there are numbers at the bottom. And that's the measurements of how big that piece of content is going to be. I can move it around sort of in a free motion, or I can tap on the grid, which is on the right-hand side near the bottom, and then it will snap the dragon. So that might be more helpful for younger children, is to work with that grid, so they've not got the dragon just moving around and out of control. More older children will be able to move easily in the free space. So here's the grid. I'm going to put the dragon over there. When I'm happy with the size of the dragon and where the dragon's going to be, I tap on the big white place button. There we go. So now as I move, he's staying right there. Let's bring in another dragon and place. And let's bring in the unicorn. I'm going to shrink that one down and put it near here. Okay. So now if I get up and move, it's as if those are sitting in the classroom, almost like posters. Okay. Additionally, there is an ability to lift things up on the different axes. So I might take the abominable snowman, for example, and underneath the place button are two arrows, one that's pointing up and one that's pointing down. If I tap on that now, I've now got a vertical grid. So I'm going to go up and I can place him right there. So in my scene, he's now sitting up in the air, which this is great if you want to build a sort of a multi-dimension scene or have your children build one, knowing that you can lift things off the ground. Okay, some other things. If I'm going to turn off the grid now and the arrows off. If I make a mistake, we've got an undo button, which is just above the place button. However, if you have placed something you don't like where it is, you have to undo everything to remove it. There is no option to just select it and get rid of it. So that red dragon, if I don't like where it's placed now, I have to get rid of everything else first. But one of the nice things we have is if I put that target next to the unicorn and tap on the unicorn's appeared in the bottom right-hand corner. I can now bring that unicorn to life with some different animation options. So that unicorn could be blinking, pulsing, so getting bigger and smaller, spinning around to the left, spinning to the right, doing it clockwise or counterclockwise, vibrating, so doing a bit of a shake, moving left to right, moving forward and backward, or moving up and down, okay? Or we could even do an orbit. You might be looking at that and thinking, that's perfect for doing the planets. I love it. You can adjust the orbits to make it a bigger radius or a smaller one. Additionally, with any movements, you can edit, oops, sorry, not edit. There is a way of increasing those as well. So you can have a really wide movement or a smaller movement. So let's do that to some of the other characters. Let's make some of them spin that way. And we'll have him do an orbit, but a very small one. So now we've got lots of different elements all moving and at the control of the children. So let's show you now how to bring in some content into AR Maker. We're going to go back over to that content library on the left side and tap on New. We've got options here of working with three-dimensional objects, which you don't have to use. You can draw on these if you want. And then you've got, you know, new stuff goes to the bottom. You've got a random little cone here, which is not very good. I don't really like that. But if I go back to New and go to that one that looks like a file folder, that is going to ask for access to your photos. So I've got my Memoji here. I'm just, all I'm doing is once I'm happy with it, I'm clicking on the checks, and that has now been added to my library. So I'm going to switch out to, oh, there she is. Come on, lady. There we go. I'm going to make her a little bit bigger. There we go. And then place. Oh my goodness. She came through huge. So we undo that one. Okay. See if I can put her in a bit smaller now. No, I don't want you that big. Yeah, 270 centimeters is a bit much. Okay. There we go. Place. Go back to New folder. Let's do, not that one. Let's do my name. I can make this bigger on the screen, or I can make it smaller. But I always recommend trying to keep content near the bottom of the screen, because if you're going to sit it on the ground, you want it to be flat on the ground and not have a space in between. So check and check. Okay. Now I can put my name in it as well. It's a bit big, so I'll make it a bit smaller. Place. Okay. To make the whole content library go away, we just tap on the arrow at the top. And now we've got access to the camera to take a screenshot, or the video to take a video. And so I can get up and walk around my scene. Okay. And that is AR Maker. So if I wanted to save this, I would tap on the three lines at the top. We've got reset, which makes a brand new grid. We've got quit, which ends the experience, and we've got save. Give it a title. So I'm just going to put sample and save scene. Now that will go into my library of scenes that I can access again. All right. Now that is AR Maker. The only thing we can't do with that is build a scene, export it, and send it to students. Okay. That feature hasn't become possible just yet. So you got to think whatever students are going to be doing, they're doing it in AR Maker and it stays there. We can't even get it out of AR Maker to put somewhere else unless we do some sort of video. And then the video is what you can move elsewhere. Okay. We'll switch back over here and just finish up. So having seen what you've seen now, what are you thinking in terms of bringing AR into your classroom? Go ahead and take about 20 seconds or so to pop some thoughts down in the chat. Yes, making a free form. I thought that would be a big hit of providing a safe way for children to start working with AR. And make sure that they've got access to managed Apple IDs so that you can collaborate with them, because you cannot basically send a copy of the freeform board. Everything is done through iCloud, and so it requires collaboration for the children. Absolutely. Yeah. If you've got a limited access to different apps, maximize the use of the ones that you do have. And because freeform comes standard, I think that's a great pathway to start bringing AR into the classroom that you know the children are going to be safe using. Yep, a lot of different options for AR. Absolutely. And I think because of workshops like this, people advocating for more, I think developers are now moving away from where they were sort of 10 years ago, where you might have just had a frog dissection and that was the only AR option. That and it being geared more towards older students, higher education. AR is now becoming much more accessible to our primary students and to our younger learners in early childhood. So keep advocating for it, because obviously it's working. So I wanted to leave you with a few resources. If you're just starting your journey with AR, this is a book I wrote a few years ago called My Journey Through Augmented Reality. It's free on iBooks. Again, if you don't have iBooks, let me know through the email and I'll get you the EPUB. But it is free to download. It does sort of document all my trials and errors of what I was exploring with during my first year. So a really handy one. These are some of the AR apps with an additional one, which is the WWF Rivers. It's not necessarily the best for early years, but I wanted to mention it because it is still a really good resource, and it might be one that you could recommend to colleagues in your primary school or other places. But these are all the apps. You've got AR Maker, 3D Bear, the Discovery Education Sandbox, WWF Rivers, Tinkercad, WWF Forest, the Very Hungry Caterpillar, Jigspace, and the Rakugaki app. Rakugaki is the only one that you will need to pay for. Finally, if you're keen to learn more about AR for early years, I did a talk on this last year, all about augmented reality for early learners, and I go a bit more in depth with some of the things that we've done. That is up on our YouTube channel, so that you can go back and have a watch of that if you're looking for more ideas than what was shared today. Okay, I'm just going to skip it because I know it's going to try and play right now. So I'm going to end the recording now and just open it up for any questions or comments.